What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer takes us into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're going to be talking about the Pitt Panthers out of the ACC, and in a conference with a ton of potential sleepers, there could be a massive one waiting to wake up in the Steel City. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you all so much for clicking on this video and for helping to support the channel. If you would like to support the channel even further, then please do what it says in the banner right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell, because turning on notifications will ensure you don't miss an upload during prediction season, especially not one of your favorite team. I am a sports media graduate, just started my new job in the sports media industry, and if you want to see all the cool stuff that I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this very YouTube channel, please go ahead, give me a follow at any of the social media icons you see on that very same bottom banner. It's Twitter or X, whatever your preference to call the platform, and Instagram. The handle is at TailgateNate29. You can feel free to even email me. It's tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I want to thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, however you may be doing so. And with all that said and done and out of the way, let's now dive on in and talking about the Pittsburgh Panthers out of the ACC and their head coach, Pat Narduzzi. In my opinion, one of the few coaches around the country that you just quite simply don't count out in any season, under any circumstance. And look, there's a lot of good returning pieces, as we're about to find out here in a minute with Pitt. Guys, watch out for the Panthers this year if they get on a roll and they get something going. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we first go through a roster preview in which the offense is over here to the left and the defense is over here to the right. At the end of the video, we will go through the Pitt Panther football schedule. I'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction, and this video overall is going to tell you what I think about the Pittsburgh Panthers here in 2025. Let's start talking about Pitt by looking at some numbers right down below me. Your returning production numbers, that's exactly what it sounds like, the amount of production returning to this football team. The numbers are courtesy of ESPN, and they do factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage. And then right down below that, recruiting and transfer portal class of 2025 ranks are according to 24/7 Sports. Noticed a typo, so do apologies for that. Let's start by talking about your offensive coordinator, Cade Bell, and what his squad is going to look like in 2025. Well, it's going to, honestly, for the most part, look pretty similar to what he had last season, and it especially is going to be true with a constant at the quarterback position. Eli Holstein, look, he dealt with a lot of injuries last season, head injuries, a leg injury, very, very highly touted player and a really, really highly recruited player, and was again is someone that just has tremendous upside as a quarterback. And look, he still saw a lot of playing time last year, 2,225 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 7 picks. From what you saw out of Eli Holstein last year, your returns were very, very positive. Is there stuff that he can improve on? Yeah, but he's a young player and he's got all the talent in the world. At the end of the year, even with all the injuries he battled, he ended up being the team's second leading rusher as well. 328 yards and 3 touchdowns in last season of 2024. Again, a kid that transferred over from Alabama, has got all the intangibles necessary to be a great, if not elite, at his top ceiling starting quarterback. I truly do believe that. I think Eli Holstein is a really, really good player. Got to stay healthy this season and continue his development in the right direction in order for Pitt to have the best season that it possibly can. Eli Holstein is a really, really good player in my opinion. However, there is a guy in this backfield by the name of Desmond Reed. Get to know this name this year, folks. 966 yards and 5 touchdowns last season. His stat line is not going to explode at you off the page, but if you watch Desmond Reed play, he was on the thumbnail screen for a reason. Number 0 is probably the biggest X factor in all of college football, and he is just an explosive play waiting to happen. A dual threat player, and as far as a running back goes, what does that mean? Well, you just heard me reading off his rushing stats. He was also the team's second leading receiver with 52 catches. That was tied for the team lead last year, by the way. 579 yards and 4 touchdowns. So a dual threat player as a running back. In baseball, you could use the terminology that he's a 5-tool player. He does everything and he does it well. He is exceptional. He is so much fun to watch. Again, as I said, an explosive play waiting to happen. He is going to be joined by a transfer coming over here in Justin Cook, a guy that I think is going to end up being a pretty good player and a pretty good backup here for this Pittsburgh team. He's a transfer coming over from East Stroudsburg. Believe that would be a Division II school. So, hey, Desmond Reed, really explosive playmaker. You get another really solid back sitting behind him in the backfield this season. Your top target in Kanata Mumpfield. This is where you start to see some of the losses here for this team. The former Akron Zip had 813 yards and 5 touchdowns for the Panthers last season. He is off to the NFL. He deserves it. Really fun player to watch. However, 3 massive weapons are going to return with a pair of transfers coming in led by Deuce Spann. I'm just going to read off some names that you will see in this wide receiver room this year. Sincere Lee may very well be the leader this season. Kenny Johnson, Raphael Williams, Kataris Hicks is going to be one of those transfers coming in. He's over from Louisville. And then Deuce Spann is another one coming over to the room as well. He's from Florida State, formerly of the Illinois Fighting Illini, and has never really gotten to showcase his ability in a wide receiver room. Could very well get his shot with the Pitt Panthers this upcoming season. And according to ourlads.com, and honestly a lot of other sources, Hicks is a guy that's probably going to get a little bit more playing time with, or I should say a little bit more playing time than Deuce Spann. But if Spann gets that opportunity, I think you're going to see him prove himself this season. Your tight end unit does, however, lose a really, really good receiving option in Gavin Bartholomew. Really, really good player that had 322 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. He is going to be gone. So Jake Overman is going to take over the top spot now as that lead tight end. 160 yards and a touchdown this season. I think he's going to slot in nicely to the role that Bartholomew did play last year. Offensive line, 2 starters are gone off the starting unit from last season. You will see 3 returners return, while roles and transfers are going to fill in on the left. Or I should say 3 returners will return to their roles, while transfers are going to fit in on the left side of this offensive line. You're going to have Jeff Percy and Keith. I'm going to butcher this last name, so I apologize profusely. Gouveia. Gouveia, however you pronounce the last name. Again, I apologize profusely, but those are 2 redshirt senior transfers that are going to be coming over and filling the left side of your offensive line for you. So to recap the offense, Eli Holstein, you got to stay healthy. And if he does, the potential is there. The numbers last season and for the playing time he got were pretty darn good. He takes another right step as well as plays a full season this year. I think the Pitt offense is going to be one to watch out for. And you got some really good options led by Desmond Reed as one of the all-around great playmakers that I think we're going to have in college football this season. Defensively, your defensive coordinator is Randy Bates. And there is a little bit of concern with this defense in some of the returning pieces. However, you see that defensive returning production number, 61%. Overall, pretty darn good. Like I said, how big is it? Really not that big because the pass rush last season was fantastic. It was a great pass rush that generated 41 sacks, and depth was vital to the team last season. That's where I think the question mark is going to come in for Randy Bates' defensive unit this year, is I think it's going to really be tested, and especially how well you're developing the depth that you saw last season, because a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of big names on the defensive side of the ball are now going to move on to either the NFL or things bigger than football, other programs, things of that nature. You're just going to see a lot of really vital pieces from last season leave this defense. And it starts on the defensive front. You lose a couple really talented guys up here, but none more talented than the likes of Nate Matlack. He was sensational for this Panther defensive front last season. Was, I believe, 3rd or 4th on the team in sacks. Did have 5 of them last year, 23 tackles to go along with that. And it's just one, or I should say, was one of the premier pieces on the defensive line from last season. So missing him, that's just going to be just some really, really big shoes to fill when you are going to have to try to fill in the gaps there for Matt Lack. You are also going to be losing Sincere Edwards, who is one of the top portal pieces. He's now going over to UCF, and a couple other guys do transfer out of the program as well. However, you do get some big returners, Jimmy Scott being one of those. Sean Fitzsimmons is another really big, vital piece. Nick James is another player that you're going to see coming back, and then a transfer in Blaine Spires, who only had 1 sack back with Utah State last year, but in 2023, 5 sacks and 27 tackles. He can fit into the Nate Matlack spot really, really easily. I think that transition will be all but seamless, and the defensive front does get some other pretty solid transfers that will come into the room, and who knows the playing time they'll see, but this could prove to be a very deep defensive line unit as the season does progress. You do lose another really big piece out of the front seven when you lose a linebacker in the likes of Brandon George. Now with Patty Mahomes, or I should say with the defensive side of Patty Mahomes, now with the Kansas City Chiefs, 80 tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception for him last season. However, the majority of the linebacking group still does return, and guys, it's just going to be an absolutely phenomenal unit. You got so many guys coming back that are really, really talented. Kyle Lewis, really, really fun name. 100 tackles, 7 sacks, led the team, also had 4 picks, led the team, is just an outstanding player. And you could very well make the case why he's one of the best linebackers in the entire country. Rasheem Biles is another really, really good player. He had 6 sacks and 81 tackles and led the team with 9 passes defended last season. Among those 2 names, there are a ton more that return. It'll be a good linebacking unit for Pitt this season. Donovan McMillan is now a Cleveland Brown, your leading tackler from last season, who had 115 of them. Yeah, I mentioned Lewis last year with 100, wasn't the leading tackler on this team. It was Donovan McMillan. 7 passes defended, did have a pick, and he, of course, is now in Cleveland. Lots of experience, however, is going to return in this unit again. List off some names really quickly here. Javon McIntyre is going to be a big one. Rashad Battle as a redshirt senior. Tamon Lynham as a redshirt senior, former transfer there as well. You do still have a lot of talent. You're losing arguably your biggest piece to that secondary. It's really hard to try to fill in the roles for triple-digit tacklers, and especially a guy that brings the talent level that Donovan McMillan did. Especially, you see now, he's proven he can play in the NFL. It's why the Browns decided to pick him up. But it was a deep unit last season, and much of that depth does return this year. Caleb Junko is going to be back to punt, while a transfer in James London is set to start at the place kicker position. That is according to ourlads.com. So when I take a look at this Pittsburgh Panther team, guys, I see a really, really high ceiling. I really do, especially if Eli Holstein, again, I'll say it one final time, takes that next jump and stays healthy this season. I think the defense, yeah, while it does lose a lot of big pieces, there are a lot of really important the pieces and players that do return, and I still think a lot of these rooms are going to be very, very deep. If not deep, the front end talent will be very, very good. Guys, this is a Pitt team. I know everyone in the ACC are talking about watch out for Georgia Tech, watch out for Duke, watch out for this team, that team. Guys, watch out for Pitt. I think this team can be really, really dangerous, and let's see how they can do against their schedule. We're about to find out right now, because here is the Pittsburgh Panther 2025 football schedule. But before we dive on into predicting this, I want to make you aware of some numbers right down below me. These numbers and odds are courtesy of FanDuel. They are current, up to date as of recording this video, and as always are subject to change. No, not me telling you to go place your money, just provide some nice context for how good the odds makers think the Panthers are going to be this upcoming season. And guys, I'm telling you what, I really, really like these numbers if I were a betting man, which I'm not. Again, not telling you to go place your money. I'm just telling you, I really, really like these numbers. In terms of odds to win the ACC, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. Out of 17 teams in the conference, they are 9th. You saw the talent we just went through. It's got some really high upside. This is a Pitt team that I think, again, having it that, guys, they're behind NC State. They're behind Florida State. They're behind some teams that I think a lot of Panther fans can look at and say, surely we're going to be better than those two teams this season. I don't know, just my thoughts on that. But I would agree with that plus 80,000. A lot's going to have to happen for Pitt to go win the national championship, let alone even make the college football playoff. Let's start by diving on into the Panthers' schedule. It's going to be an easy win against Duquesne to open up the year. There really is no doubt about that. And it should be a second win in a row at home against Central Michigan. I'm so happy that I get to talk about this game every year. The Backyard Brawl. It's going to be in Morgantown this season on the road, where country roads take you home. West Virginia will be hosting Pitt in the Backyard Brawl this season, one of the more intense rivalries throughout college football. I think it's a pretty underrated rivalry if you ask me, and I think even if you ask people of these two fan bases. And I know when I predict this game, one fan base is going to be really happy with me. The other fan base, not so much. It's like Ohio State, Michigan. It's like Bama, Auburn. These two programs hate each other. West Virginia is, I don't know if I really want to use the term rebuilding this season, and I may have said that in previous videos. I don't think that that's quite the way I see West Virginia this season. Rich Rodriguez is coming back to coach this program after serving a stint with the program in years earlier in his career, where he saw tremendous success. Can he see that level of success his second stint here with the Mountaineers? I think so. I just don't think it's going to happen this season. You're going to be breaking in a fairly new quarterback, at least as a full-time starter. Nico Marchiol is going to be that guy. However, he's got a lot of talent surrounding him. Jaheim White, at running back, some really good wide receiver pieces. The defense loaded up on transfers in the back seven. I think it's a lot to fit in, and you're going up against a Pitt team that's got a lot returning, while West Virginia at this point may still be trying to find some places for a couple of their transfers that they brought in. I really like Pitt to win this game. I think they match up well. I think Pitt schemes well for West Virginia, and I do think Pitt is going to go on the road and win this game. Wow, a road win in the Backyard Brawl. Yeah, again, guys, I really like this Pitt team. West Virginia, I think give Rich Rod a little bit of time, maybe a year or so. He is going to get this West Virginia program back on track. To me, there's no question about it. I just do think Pitt, the better team this season, the better built team. I think they got the better pieces, the better talent, and Desmond Reed, again, that X factor. Desmond Reed has big games. Pitt's going to do some good things. He could very well have one here against the Mountaineer defense that loses a lot of big pieces through the portal, and Pitt wins the Backyard Brawl. Then they get their first bye week of the season, and look, man, in my opinion, I know this may be early for some fans. I think it's a pretty perfect place to have a bye week. It's after a tough and probably what's going to be emotional game in a rivalry scenario on the road, and then you got to play a really, really tough opponent in the Louisville Cardinals. Now, Pitt can absolutely win this game, but much like you don't count out Pat Narduzzi, even though this is not the narrative surrounding the Louisville head coach, me personally, I never count out Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom is a mastermind, and I love what he does from a head coaching position, and I really love the talent on Louisville this year. Much like Pitt, I think people are sleeping on the Cardinals this season compared to, what they did last year, some of the relative expectations going on throughout this program, or I should say around this program from the national media. Miller Moss is coming in at quarterback. He hits. That's a great transfer. You got one of the better running backs in the country back there in Isaac Brown. Duke Watson, not too bad himself. Those are both true sophomores, by the way, and they're both spectacular. You paired Dakari Collins with Chris Bell and Colin Lacey in the wide receiver room. Ooh, that's just a deadly three-headed monster there. Defense, yeah, the secondary's rebuilt, but a ton of guys are going to return in that front seven, as well as some transfers to bulk it up. I really like the way this Louisville team is built, and I think that secondary for Pitt is not going to be able to contend with what Louisville might be able to do in the passing game this season. That's why I'm picking the Panthers to lose their first game of the year to the Louisville Cardinals. Apologies, frog in my throat. We move on to this game here against Boston College, and while Boston College, I think, has some pieces to be able to be fairly competitive this season, I just don't see it being I don't see it being that great of a year for the Golden Eagles. You lost Tommy Castellanos. You're going to lose some other really solid pieces everywhere, offensively, defensively, and just David Ezraku is off to the NFL. He was probably your best defensive player. Just a lot of losses, and I don't think the talent level is quite to the level, I guess, of where it was last season. Pitt should be able to beat Boston College there at home. And I also think Pitt is going to go on the road and beat Florida State. Now, the caveat I will throw in with this is Florida State, again, can absolutely win this game. And is Florida State going to have as bad of a season as they did last year? No, no, not even close. The talent level, again, I think there were too many things that went wrong last year for it to go that wrong again. Tommy Castellanos is coming in there. Loved what he did at Boston College. Think he can fit pretty well with what Mike Norvell wants to do. You got two electric wide receivers in Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White to come over and be pass catching options. You got some bowling balls in that running back room. The defense is going to be really good, especially in that secondary. Stop. Florida State's going to be a tough out for a lot of teams in the ACC this year. I just think, again, you throw in the X factor of Desmond Reed. I think Florida State still going to have some defensive trouble this season, especially at slowing down the explosive play, which Desmond Reed could have a ton of any given moment and could have a ton of in this game. Pitt's going to win their second straight road game when they go on the road and beat Syracuse as well. This game is kind of the hinge game for me. I went back and forth on this one between Pitt and Syracuse. I ultimately decided to go with Pitt because they obviously have a lot more questions than answers. Syracuse loses everybody. They are one of the worst Power 4 teams in returning production, and I think their returning production offensively is sub 35%. They're one of the worst teams in the country when it comes to returning their offensive production from last year. They need to replace everybody. Now, their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. Their defense is really talented, and it's got a lot of pieces coming back. With a team that has a lot of good offensive talent like Pitt, I just don't think there's going to be enough to keep up. So that's why I think Pitt goes on the road and wins in the Carrier Dome. And I also think Pitt beats NC State. NC State, another interesting case when you take a look at teams this year. I think they're going to be a little bit of an up and down team. They were an up and down team last year. Could be another roller coaster for Dave Doran's group. NC State is a team that very well, when I take a look at it, their defense just lacked what we normally see out of Dave Doran-led groups. If they can get back to that, I think NC State's going to be really darn successful this season. However, if they, can't get back to that and their defense really still struggles, especially at being aggressive, like, again, we normally see out of these Wolfpack defenses, I think they're wider, or I should say, I think their offensive talent overall is fine. But the defense has got to take a step up from where it was last season. I think Pitt's going to be able to match that. They got a lot of offensive weapons to be able to exploit the holes in NC State's defense. Pitt wins that game, and they should be able to win on the road against Stanford as well. Guys, take a look at this. 8-1. At this point, Pitt is probably going to be ranked, and there are a lot of talks around the Steel City about college football playoff. Look at their final 3 games. It is not going to be an easy road. If the schedule goes as I predict up to this point, even if they beat Louisville, but say they lose to Florida State, or say they lose to West Virginia, or they win all 3 of those games and get upset on the road in the Carrier Dome, or better yet, they're 9-0. Everybody in the country is talking about Pitt. Wow, what an incredible story this season. Even after the bye week, I think the noise is going to start to die down a little bit. This is just a tough 3-game stretch against 3 teams that I just think are going to be better than Pitt. Notre Dame is going to be one of the best teams in the country this year. I think CJ Carr is going to be really good when you put him under the leadership of Marcus Freeman. You take a look at Jeremiah Love in the running back room. He's one of the best in the running back businesses. Yes, even better than Desmond Reed. Sorry, Pitt fans, just the reality of the situation. And when you take a look at the wide receiver room for Notre Dame, been really young the past couple years. It brings in some experienced pieces. It's going to get better, and the Irish defense is still going to be lights out. Georgia Tech, they probably are, in a lot of people's minds, the biggest sleeper in the ACC. Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, some really talented pieces at wide receiver, including Eric Rivers, who was a star, I believe, at Florida International. Yes, Florida International, almost 1,200 receiving yards. That's a lot for the Pitt defense to keep up with. And speaking of defense, the Tech defense is going to hit really hard this season. And then Miami. Miami's going to be another good team this year. Even with all the talent they did lose, I think recency bias is affecting affecting people on Carson Beck a little bit. He's going to get back to more of what he was doing in 2023. And while I think the interceptions still are going to rear their ugly head from time to time, I think Miami overall is a team with some really good talent. Even with all they lost, their defensive front has still got a ton of heavy hitters. And after a great start to the year, Pitt loses 3 straight heading into bowl season, but overall, you take a step forward. Probably not as big of a step forward as I think a lot of Panther fans are going to hope for this season, but I really, really like this team, especially if Eli Holstein stays healthy. I think Desmond Reed is a dynamo. You got a lot of really good talent on defense. Watch out for the Pittsburgh Panthers this year. I'm telling you, they are a team that I'm going to have my close eye on when we finally start playing 2025. That's all for this video. Let me know your thoughts on the Panthers in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.